Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin Daf Lamed Zayin. We're at the last line of Lamed Vav Amud Beis, and we're discussing the concept of Breira. Breira means verification. That the future verification can go ahead and impact a process which has already been initiated and was pending upon that future verification, that future Breira. The question is, does that work? For instance, in a case where a person places a double Eruv Tchumen. He places one Eruv material to the east of the city, another Eruv material to the west. And he says, look, I'm going to decide tomorrow which one I would like to use for my Eruv. So tomorrow's decision is actually going to activate retroactively the Eruv. The question is, does that work? Can a person initiate a process which is pending upon his decision at a later date? The Mishnah tells us he can do so. He can place his double Eruv pending tomorrow's decision. And even according to Rabbi Yehuda, that can be done. Whereas we have a Brisa, which Ayah was the name of a Chacham, who presented for us a Brisa which indicated to us that no, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Breira will not work. A person cannot begin a process today and have it depend upon tomorrow's decision, which will retroactively activate and complete today's process. You can't do that. Says the Gemara, we actually have another raya that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of the concept of Breira. Says the Gemara, the last line of Lamed Vav Amud Beis, the Snan halekeach yayin ben akusim. If a person purchased wine from the kusim who are unreliable, you can't depend on them with regards to the hafrasha of Truma and Maser, so he needs to go ahead and separate Truma and Maser from this wine. He has 100 lug of this wine. He'd like to drink it, but the problem is, at this point, he doesn't have a kli to use to separate Truma and Maser. Let's take a look at Rashi here. 2 lines from the bottom. Halekeach yayin ben akusim. Says Rashi, how can one drink wine from the kusim? The kusim were these people who supposedly converted, but their gerus was questionable. So the Chacham actually made a gzera not to drink their wine. Says Rashi, it was koidim shegazru al yainam. This Mishnah, this Brisa, is actually referring to the point in history prior to the gzera, which was enacted on the wine of the kusim. As the Gemara explains, ustam kushim. So although you can drink their wine, but the assumption here is that these kusim don't take their Truma Ma'aser obligations seriously. This fellow who's buying the wine, he'd like to go ahead and address the Truma Ma'aser obligations, but he doesn't have a practical way of separating the wine. Says the Mishnah, or some say it's a Brisa, this is the way he can approach it. He can go ahead and make an announcement. He can say, well, I'm designating some portion of this wine as a Truma, as the Maser, and then go ahead and drink it, even though he's not actually separating it. Says the Gemara, halekeach yayin ben akusim oimer. He says as follows. He begins with Truma Gedola, which is generally around 2%. So he has 100 lug of wine. He says, Shnei lugin shani asad lahafresh. The 2 lugin of wine, which eventually I'm going to separate. I can't do it now, but eventually I'll do that. Harein Truma. Right now I'm establishing that to be the Truma. So he's initiating the process of Truma. He's announcing and establishing that should be Truma, but he doesn't know which one it is. He hasn't yet designated it. It's pending upon the Hafrasha at a later date. Whatever he's going to separate then will be regarded retroactively as the Truma that he had in mind. So that's regarding the Truma Gedol. Then he proceeds, Asora Maserishon. So 10 of the remaining will be for Maserishon, Tisha Maser Sheni, Umeichel V'Shoysa Miyad. Now this is referring specifically to the Maser Sheni, where he can complete the process right now. Umeichel, it can be Mechal the Kedusha of that Maser Sheni wine, wherever it is. He can transfer the Kedusha upon money that he has. So, when it comes to the Maser Sheni, don't rely and depend on your future separation. Why don't you just complete the process now, designate it, and transfer the Kedusha on the money? And this completes the process, removes the Maser Sheni concern altogether. Umeichel b'shoysa miyad, and this allows him to drink the wine immediately. Divrei Rav Meir holds that we can apply Breira, because although the Maser Sheni's process was completed, but the other thing, the Truma and the Maser Rishon, was not yet completed. He only announced, he was Kiri Shem. he designated something amongst this mixture of wine. Some of this wine is designated as Truma Maaser, but not yet defined, not yet designated and separated. Nevertheless, we can drink the wine based on the initiation of this process, which will actually be completed at a later date. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yisrael, Shimon, Oisrim, they say, no, one cannot do this. Let's take a look at Rashi inside, on the top of the Amud. So 2 out of 100 is a Truma Arehein B'Seichai. So it should be somewhere in this mixture, and it should be Truma. Umeichel, this is referring to the Maser Sheni. Umeichel Maser Sheni sheyochel l'saket miyad lo yafrasha. When it comes to the Maser Sheni, where indeed he has the ability to be masaken, meaning to completely finish the process without actually separating it, he should do that. Lachash karo shame. After he announced the Maser Sheni, he should transfer the Kedusha wherever the Maser right now is. He doesn't know where it is. It's somewhere in this wine. And should transfer the Kedusha on money. And he can proceed immediately to drink. After some time, he should separate the Truma Maser, and we say, Huver Hadavar. It's been verified, that this is the Truma. So although the initial announcement of the Truma Maser was just an initiation of a process, which was pending upon the Afrasha at a later date, that's okay. Because the Afrasha later on will verify for us, will be mevarer, that the initial Truma was directed at this very material. So retroactively, the Truma works. So this is Ramei Shita, and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shimon, they say, no, you can't. At this point, the Gemara figures that their reason why they don't allow this process is because they hold ein breira. One cannot employ this method of breira, and indeed, this is a raya that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of breira. Continues the Gemara. Ula Amar, he says, no, just the opposite. Leisa la ayoy mimas nisan. Ayoy is teaching that according to Rabbi Yehuda, he had a brayso according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's ein breira. We'll discount that. It's unreliable in view of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah which told us that when it comes to the double Erev, Rabbi Yehuda does subscribe to breira. So Ula takes a different approach. He discounts Ayoy's brayso in face of our Mishnah. Says, well, 1 second, what about this brayso of the wine, which indicates that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of breira? Ve'elaha diktani, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Oisrim. So how does Ula contend with that? Says, well, he had a different version of that brayso. Ula zuziktani. He had a version where the brayso has two groups, two pairs. Zuzi are groups, pairs. So the brayso was stated a bit differently according to his version. The brayso begins and says a person could rely on breira, and that's the opinion of Rameh and Rabbi Yehuda. So that pair, Rabbi Yehuda, hold of breira. Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shimon, Oisrim, the other pair, Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Shimon, are the ones that say he cannot approach the Truma Maaser in this manner because breira does not work. So Ula maintains that Rabbi Yehuda himself will hold yesh breira. But in any case, it seems that according to all, Rabbi Yossi does not hold of breira. Says, why is that so? We have a Mishnah which indicates otherwise. Rabbi Yossi, Shtei Noshim, two women. We're speaking about the women who need to bring birds for their carbon. For instance, after childbirth, they need to bring each one a kan. Kan is a pair of birds. One is going to be for the oila, one is going to be the chatas. So we have two women. Shalakhu es kinein. Kinein is a plural term for kan. So two pairs of birds. Be'erev, they purchased it together. Oy shenasnu kinein l'koyin, or some of the girls say shenasnu demei kinein l'koyin. They handed the money for their birds to the koyin. Now we have a total of 4 birds. And the Mishnah tells us, whatever the kohen decides, whichever one he decides to designate for the oila, he can be makir for the oila. And whichever one he decides to use for the chatas, he can proceed and be makir for the chatas. It's up to him. And the question is, 2 of these birds belong to one isha. We have Rachel and Leah. So one pair belongs to Rachel, and one to Leah. How could the Kohen go ahead and say, well, I'm going to decide which one to be makriv for who? Perhaps he's going to be makriv for the wrong owner. How can we rely on the determination of the Kohen, the breira of the Kohen, the verification, which happens only later, to determine for us, retroactively, which bird belonged to whom? You're relying on breira. So you see, Rabbi Yossi hold yesh breira. Amar Rabba, no. Hasam, you know what we're speaking about? Over there it's speaking about keshehisnu. When they purchased, when they handed the money, they made it tonight. It was conditional. They said, look, we're not defining, we're not designating right now whose bird belongs to whom. We're handing it to the Kohen, whatever he decides to do, whichever one he designates for whichever woman, that determination will establish matters. So in this case, it's different. It doesn't rely on breira. Why? Because breira means you've initiated a process. And this process is yet unfinished. It's pending upon some future decision that you have to make. That doesn't work, according to Rabbi Yossi. However, in this case, where they didn't initiate any process, they took the birds, they purchased it b'shutvas, they purchased it together without defining which one belongs to whom. They gave it to the Kohen, totally dependent upon the Kohen's decision. So it's up to him. It's not like we initiated the process and the Kohen will simply define and verify it for us. And that will have to take place and applied retroactively. It's the Kohen, it's completely his decision, it's his business. Or they gave him money, buy the kingdom for us. It's your decision. Whichever one you'll designate for Rachel, it's for Rachel. Whichever one for Leah, it's for Leah. So here it's different. It doesn't rely on breira altogether. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, what's the chiddush here? It's a very simple, straightforward halacha. Well, why would I think otherwise? Says the Gemara, Kamash Malan, there is a chiddush here. The Mishnah is teaching us that perhaps there is a problem here. Because since they purchased two pairs, one kan and another kan, and each kan is meant to have an oila and a chatas. So perhaps that becomes determined and established. You can't go ahead and mix and match. You can't go ahead and say, well, I'll take this kan and mark it completely for the oila, and the other pair completely for chatas. Right? One oila and chatas per woman. Perhaps you can't do that because each pair, each kan is meant to have a chatas and an oila. So that's the chiddush here. We don't say that. Kamash Malkut Rav Chizda. We follow Rav Chizda's halacha, who tells us, Dam Rav Chizda, Ein akinin misparshois. The pairs of birds that are brought by these fellows who need the kapara, who require one bird for chatas, one for oila, that doesn't get determined and established and designated unless that designation happens during one of two events. Either when they actually purchase those birds, the shas kelekicha, then you have the ability to define and designate which one's chatas, which one's oila. Or, if you haven't done so during the time of purchase, the kohen during the shas hakrava will do that. But in this case, when it was purchased, it wasn't yet designated, then although you've purchased two separate pairs, you can go and mix and match. You can say, well, both birds of this pair are oila, both birds of the other pair of chatas, without any concern. So that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. The birds of the pairs of the kinem will not be designated, one for chatas, one for oila, elo, except either it happens during the purchase of the birds by the owner. Meaning he purchases it with that in mind. He says, this pair of birds, okay, this is for chatas, this one's for oil. So either then, ibasiyas kohen, or it can happen during the hakrav of the kohen. As opposed to our case, where they purchased it without designation. So there was no designation b'shas lekicha. Mishnah tells us, although it was purchased as two separate pairs, the kohen has the ability to determine which one is chatas, which one's oil. Let's take a look at Rashi inside, on the top of the Amud. Ela ibel lekichas bailam she'amru b'shas lekicha. So the owner has designated, has announced during the time of purchase, Zu ani lekech la'oila, zu lechatas. This one I'm purchasing for oila, this one for chatas. That's one option. or by Siyas coin, or it can happen during the Asiyah of the coin. Avalim lacham stam. But if they purchased it without designation, v'achach kara aleim shem, and afterwards you decide, okay, this is the Chatas Zayla, that doesn't work. Ein Hashem chalem, the name, the designation, the title will not take effect. V'yachal hakohen l'shanoisen. The kohen has the ability to switch things around. How does he know that? It says the Gemara, it says Rashi v'kra darish Rav Chizda b'seder Yuma. Rav Chizda learns this from a pasuk in the Gemara Yuma. The pasuk says v'lachcha shtei seirim or shnei bnei yoina echad la'oilo echad l'chatas. So she'll purchase the pair of Turim or the pair of Bnei Yoina, one for oil, one for Chatas. So that's one pasuk, which seems to connect the designation to the time of purchase. We have another pasuk, Ksiv Gabi Koyin. Vas HaKoyin es echad Chatas ve'echad oila. The Koyin has the ability to make one Chatas, one oila. Alma. So we see from here that it's either during one of these two experiences. Ein Shem oila v'chatas chalein. The name oila and Chatas will only descend on these birds in either one of these two situations. Either during the time of purchase, or during the time of that krov itself. So in summary, according to Rabbi Yossi, ein breira. Why does it work? In the case of the birds, the Gemara explains to us, because breira there is not part of the equation. Says the Rakati, so Rabbi Yossi ein breira. Can you really say that Rabbi Yossi holds ein breira? We seem to have rayas, actually two rayas, which show that Rabbi Yossi holds a breira. This is number one. So the chaver is this person who's trustworthy and reliable. He's adopted a high level of conduct. He's conformed to certain guidelines which classify him as a chaver. So a chaver is not meant to sell dzmai tamaretz. So dzmai is the produce which he purchased from amaretz. In which case the truma maisa status is questionable. So the chaver can't take that dzmai and transfer it, sell to Hamaretz. He must first address the Truma Meiser prior to handing it to Hamaretz, who might eat it when it's still Asa B'achila. Therefore, the Chaver can't do that. What happens if the Chaver is on his way to the marketplace, and his Hamaretz friend meets him on the way, says, "You're going to the market? Why don't you do me a favor? Pick up some items for me as well." Says the Brayz, Hamaretz Amal Chaver. So Hamaretz turns to the chaver on the way to the marketplace and says, "Kachli agudo achas shel yarak. Please purchase for me as well one bundle of vegetables, oigluska achas, or one of this type of cake." And the chaver reaches the marketplace. He purchases for himself and for his Amaret's friend, and then goes and takes the produce which belongs to his friend, which he purchased for his friend, and hands it over to his friend. Now, what happened was that in the marketplace, the chaver purchased these items from Amaret's. So they have a status of a dzmai. Now he's going to take part of that purchase and hand it over to the Amaret's friend. There's no need for him to do the maaser. Why? Because whatever he's going to hand over to the Amaret's when he returns from the marketplace was originally destined for him. It's not like the chaver first purchased it for himself and then resold it to Amaret's. Because although he purchased a number of bundles here, and never really designated which one's for who. He didn't say this one's mine, this one's the Amaretz. He purchased a whole bunch and then eventually goes and hands part of it to the Amaretz. We say yesh breira. That whatever he hands over to the Amaretz at a later date has been determined initially to have been purchased for the sake of Amaretz. So he never purchased it for himself and then handed it over. It was initially purchased for the Amaretz. So we see that according to Rabbi Yossi, breira can apply. What happens later has the ability to retroactively affect and impact the earlier event. He's required to take off maaser from the produce which he hands over to the Amaretz. Why? According to Chacham, we say ein breira. We don't know what's what, perhaps. What you're giving him was something you'd purchased for yourself, and now you're handing him something of your own, which is asa b'achila, it's mai. You can't do that. You can't give that to Amaretz. You need first to take off maaser. So you see, Rabbi Yossi holds yesh breira. This is in contrast with Rabbi Yossi, who tells us earlier in the halacha of the wine there, that ein breira. That's more eifach. Evidently, you must switch the gersa around. It's Rabbi Yossi who holds tzarech la'aser because he holds ein breira. Toshma, let's bring a raya from the next brisa. Ha'omer maser sheyesh li b'beisi. A person makes an announcement. He says, the maser sheni that I have at my home, mechulol al sela, the kedusha of that maser will be transferred on a sela coin. Which one? He has a pocket full of coins. So he says, on the coin shetala biyad min hakis, which I'll bring up when I stick my hand in my pocket. So at this point, the coin is yet undefined. Nevertheless, it works. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's the shita of Tanakam. That's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, if he says, he makes this announcement that the kedusha of the Maaseh Sheni will be transferred onto that coin, whichever coin which will come up in my hands. When I put my hand in my pocket, Rabbi Yehuda says, mechulol, the maser gets transferred. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda holds a breira, because at this point, that specific coin has not yet been verified and defined. Nevertheless, when that coin is pulled out of his pocket, we say, this is the coin that he had in mind. So the verification at a later moment will go ahead and retroactively complete that initial process. So you see that Rabbi Yehuda holds a breira. There's more eifach here as well. We must switch things around. Meaning, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold that it works. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't work. It says it in 1 second. You're taking two brises, which state clearly that according to Rabbi Yehuda, breira works, and you're switching things around. You're amending them. Why? In view of the fact that you have an earlier brisa with the story of the wine, where Rabbi Yehuda seems to say, ein breira. Umay chazes, why do you prefer the afches tarte mikam echada? You're going to go switch around two brises in view of one brisa. Do the opposite. Eifach echada mikam tarte. Why don't you better switch around one brisa in view of two brises, 2 against 1? Meaning, rather than switch this around, switch around the earlier brisa and say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, he can go ahead and do that truma maser with the wine, although it involves breira, because Rabbi Yehuda holds a breira. Just as we find these two brises. Rabbi Yehuda holds a breira. Says the Gemara, no. Ha vada ifchatanya, because this second brisa with the Maaseh Sheni is certainly meant to be switched around. Why? Diktani sefer. Because that brisa concludes as follows. Umaydi Rabbi Yehuda will agree in the following case that will work. Because it doesn't involve breira. But Omer, when he says, Maaseh sheyesh b'sech beisi, the Maaseh Sheni that I have in my home, yeh mechulol al sela chadasha, will be mechulol, the kedusha will be transferred on a new coin, shetal biyad min hakis, which I'll pull out of my kiss, as a pouch or a pocket. In this case, shechilel, it works. Says the Gemara, Medika Amar Hacha Shechilel. The fact that the Brisa tells us that specifically here it works, that appears to indicate to us, Mechlal Da'asam Lechil, apparently in the earlier case where there were several coins in his pocket, where breira is required to be applied, in that case it won't work. So it's very clear that Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of breira. And therefore, we concluded as such, Rabbi Yehuda apparently does not hold of breira, and the version of Rabbi Yehuda in that case of the wine is the correct version, and we're meant to switch around both these brises to conform with that version. It says, well, let's analyze this brisa with the Maaser Sheni. Hi, Salah Chadasha Eichidami. So we have another case where it works. Why? Because it's a new coin, and apparently breira doesn't need to be employed. So well, what are we speaking about? Idika Tartit Las. We're speaking that there are 2 or 3 coins in that pocket. The yesh breira. Evidently, breira needs to be applied because there are a number of coins there. Which one was used? Apparently, breira needs to be applied. The one which he's going to choose is the one which he had in mind initially. If so, Hanukkah Maisa. This is the very first case, meaning it's identical to the first halacha, where there are a number of coins, but breira need to be applied. Rabbi Yehuda says it doesn't work. So what's the difference between one and the other? Says Ella the Leka Elachad. Apparently the Sefer is speaking about that there was only one coin present, and therefore breira doesn't need to be applied. He can go ahead and say the Maaser Sheni will be mechul on that single coin, the new coin that I have in my pocket, because there's only one coin in the pocket. So there's no need to verify anything. Says if that's the case, El Delek Elachad, my Tala. So why does the Brisa say that it's going to be mechulal on the Sela Chadasha, Shetala Biyad Min Hakis? that my hand will bring up from the kiss. Apparently there are a couple there. Says the Gemara, no, actually the word tala here is a bit inaccurate. I did the tani reisha tala. Since the reisha, which was speaking about a number of coins, required the word tala to be mentioned, meaning the one of the many coins which will end up in my hand, that's the one which will be used. So since the Brisa used the word tala there, on account of that, tana seifa nami tala. Likewise, the Brisa mentioned the word tala in the seifa, although it's really a bit inaccurate because we're speaking about one coin, and therefore the word tala there is out of place. So in summary, the Brisa gives us two cases. One case involves brera, therefore contra bresa does not work. And the sefer, brera is not required because only one coin, therefore contra bresa works. So in summary, contra bresa, brera will not work. Amalei Rav Nachman. We discussed several cases of brera, but the common denominator amongst all those cases was that we were speaking about something which involved a din Torah. For instance, Truma Maser of wine. For instance, the birds of the carbon, Maser Sheni. Can we find a Tana that holds ein brera when it pertains even to a din d'Rabbanan? Amalei Rav Nachman. Man hay Tana. Who is the Tana? What's the identity of the Tana that holds that feel with d'Rabbanan less like brera? That he holds even when it comes to only a din d'Rabbanan, which perhaps is more lenient. Nevertheless, he does not hold a brera even in that case. Where do we find this shita? In the following brisa. And we'd like to know what's the identity, who is the man de Amar that holds that shita. The Sana, we learned in the brisa. Amar l'chamisha. If a person turns to 5 people and he says like this: Hareini ma'ariv, I'm establishing an Erev Tchumen for the sake of you as well, but I'm going to decide which one of you can use this Erev. Hareini ma'ariv al ezem mekem she'ertze, on whichever one of you that I decide in the future that can use my Erev, the Erev will be applied to him. Rotzisi yelech, if I like, if I would want you to use it, yelech, then this person can go ahead and walk based on the Erev. The Erev will be applied to him. Lo rotzisi, but if I don't want, lo yelech, he can't walk, he can't use the Erev. So that's the announcement that he made. He established the Erev for the sake of other people, but it's pending upon his decision at a future date. So what's the halacha? Ratzon b'yom, if he willed when it was still Friday, before Ben Hashmashis, he decided, okay, I want this Erev to apply to Eruvin. Eruvin Erev, then it works because it's still prior to Ben Hashmashis. Mishach HaSheikh, but if he only decided after nightfall, Ein Eruvin Erev, then it doesn't work because this is meant to be rely on brera. Your current decision is meant to apply retroactively to the time of the Erev activation. At the point of the Ben Hashmashis, it was yet undefined. He hadn't yet decided who is going to use the Erev. His decision only came later. That's meant to be applied retroactively. That revolves brera. The Brisa says brera doesn't work. And here we're speaking about Tchumen, which the Gemara assumes is only the Rabbanan. So you see that brera will not apply even by the Rabbanan. So who is this man de Amar? What's the identity of this Tana? Ishtik, Sir Rav Nachman, kept quiet, silent, they didn't respond. He didn't know who the Shita is, who is this man de Amar. Says the Gemara, why not? Why didn't he tell him? Tana devei Ayahu. It's the Tana of the Brisa which was presented by Ayah, who told us that even when it comes to a D'Rabbanan, like placing that double Erev on condition, it doesn't work because brera does not apply even to a D'Rabbanan. So why couldn't Rav Nachman make reference to that Brisa? He should simply tell him, Tana devei Ayahu. He never heard of that Brisa, therefore he's unaware of that Tana. Says the Gemara, Rav Yosef Amar, you're looking for a Tana that holds that ain't brera even by the Rabbanan? Tanoi shaklas ma'alma. You've removed all the Tanaim from the world, meaning you have nobody left. You have no source Tana for the Shita. I'll show you which Tana it is. Tanoi. It's actually contained in the following machlokes Tanaim, who seem to be discussing this very question, whether or not brera can be used even by the Rabbanan. The Sani learned in the Brisa. Hareini ma'ariv shabbasos shel kol hashana. This fellow's establishing an Erev Tchumen. He wants it to be active throughout the entire year. The Shabbos shel kol hashana. But he wants to decide during each individual Shabbos whether or not he wants that Erev. He's going to activate the Erev Shabbos by Shabbos. Rotzisi Elech, if I want to use it, I'm going to use the Erev. Lo Rotzisi, if I decide not to activate the Erev for that particular Shabbos, Lo Elech, then I'm not going to use this Erev. So that's his statement. So what is the halacha? Says the Brisa, it depends. Rotzim Boydoim, if he decided when it was still daytime, I'd like to use this Erev for this Shabbos, I'd like it to be activated during the coming Ben Hashmashas, Erev, then it works. Because the process has been completed prior to Ben Hashmashas. There's no pending process here. Breira is not required. But if he only decided come nighttime, after the Ben Hashmashas period, in which case Breira needs to be applied, because the present decision is meant to impact and activate the Erev retroactively. Yeah, it works, because Breira can be applied here as well. The Erev doesn't work, because Breira cannot be applied. Says the let's just analyze the Brisa. Let's say Breira. We seem to have a kasha. Here Reb Shimon tells us that Breira will work. Whereas in the earlier story with the wine from the Kusim, Reb Shimon tells us, Ein Breira. Kasha, the Reb Shimon. We have a kasha from the two Reb Shimons. Ella Eifach, apparently you must switch things around. Now in the case of the Erev Tchumen that we just mentioned, it's Reb Shimon is going to say that Ein Breira. So you see clearly Reb Shimon holds Ein Breira even by Tchumen, which is the Rabbanon. So here is our source Tana. Says for 1 second, what was your kasha to begin with? Between the Reb Shimon here, who applies Breira by Tchumen, which is the Rabbanon, in contrast to Reb Shimon by the wine, who says Ein Breira. My kasha, what was the kasha to begin with? Dilma perhaps, ki lesle Reb Shimon Breira. When does Reb Shimon say Ein Breira? The Daraisa. Only when it concerns a din Daraisa like Truma Meiser. Amo Darabanan Isle Breira. But when it comes to a Darabanan, Isle, he holds a Breira. So what was the kasha to begin with? There was no contradiction. Says the Gemara, Kasavar of Yosef, he holds no, we can't differentiate between the Daraisa and Darabanan. Ma Isle Breira, the sheet that holds a Breira. Whether it's Daraisa or Darabanan, he will hold a Breira. We don't differentiate between one and the other. The sheet does not hold a Breira. He will not apply Breira, whether it's Daraisa or Darabanan. Therefore, we can't differentiate and say, well, it's Darabanan, therefore Reb Shimon holds a Breira, in contrast with the early case of the wine, which is Daraisa. We can't say that. Therefore, evidently, the names, the sheets must be switched around. It's Reb Shimon who holds this Erev will not take effect because it relies on Breira. And it'll be compatible with Reb Shimon earlier by the wine, who holds Ein Breira. So indeed, this is a source Tana for Ein Breira even Midrabanan. So Reb Shimon continues the Gemara. Rava Amar, Rava says, look, Reb Shimon really can hold a Breira. What was the kasha? How come when it comes to the wine situation, he doesn't allow him to separate the Truma Maser in that manner? Says Rava, it's irrelevant. It's unrelated to Breira. The reason why Reb Shimon doesn't allow him to do it there is because of another concern. A halacha concern pertaining specifically to Truma. Rava Mashani Hassam, the case of Truma is different. You know why it doesn't work? The Be'inin Rashis, the Torah describes Truma as Rashis, the initiation, the first. That indicates to us that there must be something left over, some remnants which are discernible right now. Shani Hassam, the Be'inin Rashis. The Truma is required to conform to the term Rashis. Sheshirani Karan, its leftovers, are nikar, are clearly discernible. Meaning, when you go ahead and you are Kairi Shem, you establish something to be Truma, you need to see the shirayim, the leftovers. This is Truma, this is the Rashis of the rest of the bunch. In contrast to the case of the wine, where he's calling out, look, 2 lugim somewhere in this bunch, somewhere in this barrel, should be Truma. That doesn't conform to Rashis, because you don't know where it is. You haven't designated it. You don't know what the Truma is and what the Shirayim are. Therefore it doesn't work. It's not related to Breira. Shimon holds a Breira. It doesn't work there for a different reason. Amalei Abaye, El Ma'ata, if this is a concern, meaning, Rabbi is telling us a chiddush. Although eventually he's going to separate the Truma, you'll see clearly what's the Truma and what's the Shirayim. But since at the point in time when he's Kairei Shem, when he calls out the name, when he establishes the Truma, when he initiates that process, you don't see clearly what's the Truma and what are the Shirayim, then it doesn't work. Says Abaye, Omer Abaye, if that's the case, Ela mi'ata. Now what about the following scenario? If he had before him 2 rimonim, so he has these 2 pomegranates, shel tevel. He'd like to go ahead and be mafresh truma. V'amar, and he says the following: Im yerdu gesham hayom, if it rains today, yehezei truma alzeh, then rimoin A will be truma on rimoin B. V'im lo yerdu gesham hayom, and if it doesn't rain today, then let it be in the reverse. Yehezeh truma alzeh, then rimoin B will be considered truma on rimoin A. Hachinami, here as well, well, you say it doesn't work because at the point when he's clear as shame, when he announces this is going to be truma, you don't see clearly what's the truma and what's the shirayim. You don't know what's what. So you're going to say it doesn't work? Hachinami, bein yardu, bein lo yardu, whether it rained or whether it didn't rain, they would of klum. It's in effect and it doesn't work. Now, if you'll say, yeah, you're right, it doesn't work because it's not shirei nikar. If that's the case, as Abaye, we'll have a kash, that's not. Truma sakri hazeh umasroisa b'soich. So he has this kri, this pile of grain. He announces as follows: the truma, the maestros of this kri will be b'soichai, inside this pile. Utrumas masas b'soichai. So he's not designating, he's not separating the actual truma master. He's saying it's in this pile. The name has been established, meaning it works. It's chal, it's been activated. So apparently, even according to Reb Shimon, there's no need for the shirayim to be discernible at the point of the Kriyas Shem when he announces the name. So this is Abaye's Kashan Rava. We see from here that there's no concern, as you had proposed. Says the Gemara Shani Hasan. That case is different. The Ika Svivav. Because what are the words that he's using? He's saying Truma Sakri is b'soichai. B'soichai means right in the middle. He's designating a location for that truma. The Ika Svivav, the shiraim around that truma. It's not undefined. It's not undesignated. He's very much designated where the truma should be. It's right in the middle. It's in the middle of that pile. So here, it's shirei nekarim. It conforms with that requirement. Continues the Gemara. Let's get back to the initial question. We had an apparent contradiction between Reb Shimon, who tells us that one can place an eruv pending on future decisions, so a breira works. In contrast with the earlier Reb Shimon, when it comes to the wine, who tells us he cannot go ahead and be mafresh his truma master in this manner, where it appears he's depending on breira. So Rabbi told us no. Reb Shimon holds a breira. The reason why the truma doesn't work is because of an additional concern of shirei nekarim. Then we'll give us another pshat. Reb Shimon holds a breira. The reason why he doesn't allow the person to be mafresh the truma master when it comes to the wine in that manner, by announcing truma master today and only separating it tomorrow, that's due to a practical consideration. If you will, I'll give you another approach. Because Tani Taima, Reb Shimon's hesitation by the wine is based on the reason that he himself announced to Reb Meir. The Brisa there concludes like this: Amalei Reb Meir, the other Tanoim called out to Reb Meir, did you not agree that there's a concern here? Fine, breira works, but there's a practical consideration. Because, let's face the facts, the point of the breira is that it's only initiation of the process. He needs to actually separate it tomorrow. Now let's say he doesn't actually separate it tomorrow, then the process has never been completed. The Torah Maisa has never been addressed. And when he drank the wine today, he has drunk tevel. So they told him like this: do you not agree? Let's be concerned that the noid, this flask, this container, will split, will crack, and the wine will flow out. He'll never actually come to complete the process to separate Torah Maser. It turned out that he's going to be drinking tevel retroactively. So let's be concerned about that. Rameir responded, look, Sheyivaka, I'll worry about it when it happens. Meaning, I'm not really concerned about this far-fetched scenario, and therefore, he can go ahead and proceed with this process. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. 4 lines from the bottom. It says, it says Rashi, of Shimon Islay Breira. Let's assume Shimon holds a Breira. Why doesn't he allow this person to do the process by the wine? You know why he ashes by the wine? It's not because he holds ein breira. Rather, it's because of the tam that he himself stated in the Brisa. Shami baka noid. Perhaps the noid will crack. Prior to the hafrasha, before he even gets to be mafresh, he'll lose his wine. And as a result of that, it will turn out that he drank tevel retroactively. So that's the concern. Says Rashi, because certainly if he actually eventually is mafresh it, we can say, this portion which was given to the kohen, yesh breira. We go ahead and we apply breira. We say, well, this portion that you've given to the kohen, this was the very wine that this person had in mind. So this completes the process retroactively. And the rest of the wine that he drank was chula. There's no conflict between the truma and the chula. That's only if he actually completes the process. Avol. But in the case where the noid cracks, the truma was never separated from it. How can you apply brera here? Brera means let's rely on the future completion of the process. There was no completion here. There was never truma here. It never came to truma. So that's the argument that Reb Shimon presents to Reb Meir. And Reb Meir responds, look, when it happens, we'll worry about it. We're not concerned about this. It's not something which is common. The Ibayi, Masal can simply hand it over to a person to safeguard it. We're not concerned about that possibility. So in conclusion, according to this version of the Gemara, Shimon holds a brera, but is concerned about losing the wine, in which case the process will never complete itself. Says, well, there's one thing still to verify. Now, according to the way we initially interpreted Reb Shimon's concern, which was Rav's approach, that the reason why he can't do that is because the ba'inan reishes shir nikaran. We require that the truma, which is the reishes, have the shiraim discernible and noticeable. So that's why Reb Shimon holds he can't go ahead and announce truma when the truma is not identified. It's not located in a specific area, in which case the shiraim are nikar. Now, if that's the case, if Rav's approach is correct, and why does Reb Shimon and the other Tanoim respond in the manner which they did? What are they telling Reb Meir? If their concern is shirei nikarim, so why are they saying, well, we're concerned that the noid will break and the wine will get lost? That wasn't their concern. Their concern was a halacha concern that we require shirei nikarim. Says the Gemara, you're right. Truthfully, that was their concern, shirei nikarim. But this is what they told him. According to our personal opinion, be'inan reishes shirei nikarim. The reason why you can't go ahead and do the truma in this manner, because truma, which is reishes, requires the shiraim to be identifiable and discernible. However, according to you, who apparently is not concerned with that. But what about a practical concern? Yeah, do you not agree? There's a practical problem here. Let's be concerned that the flask will be damaged. The wine will flow out. He'll never be mafresh truma maser. V'nimtza shoyse tol mafreya. And it'll turn out that retroactively he drank tevel. So if you're not concerned with the other halacha concern, be concerned with the practical concern. Amalena may respond, when it'll crack, worry about it. So certainly, Reb Shimon and other Tanaim perhaps are basing their reservation on the halacha of reishis. The reason why they spoke to Reb Meir in this manner, they were addressing his opinion. Perhaps you don't agree with the halacha concern, but be concerned with the practical concern, and responded, I'm not concerned about that either. Okay, so in summary, let's just make a quick review of today's daf. We discussed the concept of breira, which means a person is initiating a process which is pending upon future events, future decisions, which will retroactively complete that initial process. There's a machlekes in the Gemara between Tanaim whether or not we say yesh breira. The Gemara tells us this machlekes will apply not only to the Araisa situations, but even situations which involve only the Rabbanon, for instance, Erev Techumen. Now, we actually have a question regarding Rabbi Yehuda's Shita, whether or not he holds a breira. And the Gemara also has a question regarding Rabbi Shimon's Shita, whether or not he holds a breira. The Gemara concluded that with regards to that brisa of the person who purchased the wine from the kusim, he'd like to go ahead and initiate the process of Tumas and Meisters by announcing it now but only separating it later. There are three issues that can be involved there. Number one, breira. Number two, the concept of reishis, the ba'ina shireh nikarn, when one goes ahead and establishes truma, we need that the shirayim, the remnants, should be discernible and identifiable. As Gemara concluded, there's another concern as well, which is a practical concern. Perhaps we'll never come to complete the process. The flask will be yivaka, will split and get damaged, and the wine will flow out, in which case we'll never come to complete the process. And therefore, Reb Shimon and the other Tanaim hold, he's not meant to rely on this process. Whereas Rabbi responds, I'm not concerned with that. That's a far-fetched concern. Let him safeguard his barrel properly. Let him safeguard this noid, and make sure his wine doesn't get lost, and therefore he can go ahead and apply this process and drink the wine immediately.